5 minutes after the hour, so let's go ahead and get started. So, as an introduction, this is just the Power BI Premium webinar, and really the goal of this is to introduce Power BI to people that don't really understand it, the kind of features and functionalities that exist, and is there a free version? What can you do with the free version? So, I want to break that down so that it's a little more tangible so you can understand how you can really hit the ground running. I'll walk you through how to download it, get access to it, and actually how to process it and analyze data once you get it inside of Power BI. One of the more impressive tool suites that's available inside of the entire Microsoft suite. A lot of tools, a lot of functionality, and is actually free for the Power BI desktop version. A little bit about me. I'm actually Brian Nielsen. I'm the lead training architect with Opsagility. Spent 11 years in consulting, got over 26 years of IT experience, and if you do have any questions, please go ahead and put it in the chat. It does seem like our chat is disabled for some reason. I'm not sure why, but I'll have some contact information at the end of this presentation if you do want to contact and reach out. And the goal of this is really to give you an understanding of all the different pieces that make up Power BI to begin with, and then we'll break it down into the Power BI desktop. So the features and functionality that are available in truly the free version. So you're not extremely limited, just want to give you an idea of what that scope looks like. And we'll go into the different features that are available inside of Power BI, and then I'll go into a lot of different demos. Let's take a look at the entire Power BI ecosystem. Understand that it is actually a suite of business analytics tools that enables users to analyze data and also share these insights. It's an ecosystem that includes Power BI Desktop. That's just going to be your Windows-based application for creating your data models, your reports, and also dashboards. Then there's also a Power BI service. That's a cloud-based service for sharing and collaborating on reports and also dashboards. There's also a Power BI mobile. So you can work directly in a mobile app. You can view and interact with charts and reports and also dashboards on the go. Power BI actually integrates into pretty much any other Microsoft product. So whether it's Excel, Power Apps, or even SharePoint. Understand that Power BI is a lot more than just an ordinary reporting tool. So starting off on the far left, we've got data acquisition. So now you can connect to a variety of different data sources. These can be cloud-based, they can be on-prem databases, they can be Excel spreadsheets, and hundreds of other different types of connections that are available. So I'll go through the connection types that are available inside of this a little bit later, but to understand, you can connect to pretty much anything. And I'll cover some more obscure variations as we go through the demos. Next, we got data preparation and cleansing. There's a lot of different tools inside of Power BI that allow you to clean and also transform your data. It also includes Power Query and also Query Editor. So if you have any Excel background, you're going to jump right in the Power BI and be able to hit the ground running really, really quickly. But you also have the ability to utilize custom functions if you have any more complex data cleansing tasks. And I'll show you how to utilize those also in the demos. There's also a profiling capability inside of Power BI, so you can quickly identify data quality issues and also quickly take corrective actions on those. On the data modeling side, you can actually create relationships between tables, define hierarchies, and also apply business logic to your data. You can also create calculated columns and also measures if you want to perform calculations and aggregate your data. On the reports and dashboards, this allows you to put in visualizations, also different dashboard tools, so you can have compelling reports and dashboards for your users. There's a wide range of pre-built visualizations. You can import custom ones from the marketplace or even create your own custom ones. And finally, on sharing collaboration, this allows users to share their reports and dashboards with other users with a variety of different options. This can be embedding a report in a different application, a web application. You can share links, you can share a QR code, or even publishing reports to the Power BI service. Users can actually collaborate on these reports and dashboards inside of Power BI. Understand that the sharing portion is going to be very limited in the free version, and I'll cover what the scope of that is a little bit later. These are all the different components that make up Power BI. So starting with the Power BI desktops, pretty much the focus of this entire webinar. That's just going to be your Windows application. You can create reports and publish your reports. Next, you move up to the Power BI service. This is where you want to collaborate with others and also get access to different types of data sources that are available inside the service. Power BI app, you want to look at different types of dashboards or reports a mobile application that is also available. Additionally, there's an on-premise data gateway. So if you want to connect to on-premise data sources and also enabled a data refresh to your reports is available inside here. When you move up the licensing, you've got Power BI Premium. This offers a lot more features. You've got higher data capacity. You can set up a more frequent data refresh if needed. You also have the option to add in additional security and more administrative functionality. Power BI Embedded. This is so you can actually embed Power BI reports directly inside web applications or if different portals if you need to. If you're still using Report Server, there actually is a Power BI report server. So if you've got to make pixel perfect or you need certain reports to fit in a particular format or print exactly right on a piece of paper, you can continue that functionality with the Power BI report server. Take a look at all these in detail. Starting with the Power BI desktop, there's a lot of different activities available inside here. So starting with data acquisition, just getting your data in, preparing it and cleaning it up, working with modeling, and finally just going into report creation. If you actually want to get into the Power BI service, you can log into it with the free version. So this works like most applications inside of Azure. It's available at app.powerbi.com. Inside here, there are some limitations. I want to show you what this kind of looks like a little bit. This is what the Power BI service looks like when you go in. So I'm at app.powerbi.com. You've got workspaces, My Workspace. What we'll be focused on and the demos is the My Workspace. This is where you can publish items directly inside here. The My Workspace is very similar to how your My Documents work on your local computer. You can't share that with people externally. So as you add more licenses, the Pro or Premium license, that's when you can start sharing, collaborating, and working in different types of workspaces. And you also create different dashboards inside here. If you want to refresh your data from different backend sources, you can set that up. Also, the shared data sets allows you to actually create really clean data sets. So let's say that you want to have people creating a very specific report type. So you've already gone through your cleansing, you've renamed columns, you've renamed data sources, you've cleaned up your data to remove any duplicates or any empty rows, things like that. So now you can push that data set out so that every time somebody creates a report, naming conventions are automatically going to be carried over and they don't have to start from the underlying data source and try and create all that every single time. So it saves a tremendous amount of time. It makes your reports a lot cleaner also. There's also data flows. This is part of a Power Query, so you can transform and also shape your entities. Use it across different multiple data sets. So your analysts can make entities for things like customers or even fiscal calendars so that they can be reused as data sets across your organization. Finally, there's actually Q&A. So it actually is a natural language query. So it actually utilizes AI to query the data that you've provided to this particular report and really is a quick way to generate reports and instantly push those to a dashboard. Let's get into the Power BI desktop. As I mentioned, we will be doing quite a bit of demos around this. We'll start by taking a look at this is what the interface generally looks like, the main functionalities around acquiring, preparing, and also modeling your data and finally creating your reports. If you would like to download this, and I'll show this link at the end also, this is where you would download Power BI Desktop. It is completely free. You can download it two different ways. One is going to be through the Microsoft Store, or you can download it directly. There are some advantages if you decide to use the Microsoft Store. It is going to give you a lot more options and functionality with doing automatic updates rather than having to download a new version every time, which, as you can see, it actually updates every single month. So the fact it updates every single month means you really don't want to have to install it every single time or get that pop-up that says, hey, there's a new version that exists. You do not have to have admin privileges. So if you're on a lockdown machine, Microsoft Store is going to make that a lot easier, or you can actually roll it out as part of a IT rollout. If you are interested in seeing what updates and features are coming across, as I mentioned before, there is a monthly cadence that they're pushing this out. There's always a new update. If you want to take a look at the new features that are coming out, there's a roadmap available also. Let's take a look at what actually is inside this Power BI desktop. As I mentioned, there's a lot of features and functionality inside here, so let's kind of walk through these. Starting off with the ribbon, it's very similar to other Office products. It contains tabs that have various options. Starting off on the Home tab, you can get data, you can refresh data, you can create a new report page or a visual. You got access to creating other objects like buttons, text boxes, and also images. Or if you want to define a theme for this, you can apply that also. A little more detail of what that looks like. I mentioned you can get a custom visual from the marketplace. This is where you would get access to that also, or even publish it out to the app service. Next, moving into the View tab, I can actually hide or show different panes. So for this particular one, I've actually highlighted the performance pane. So actually has a built-in performance analyzer. So if I'm doing a lot of cleanup and it's affecting the performance, I can utilize this performance analyzer to see where the actual troubles reside, see where all these actually exist. You got visuals that are taking a long time to load, or DAX formulas, or any type of programming. This is where it would bubble up so you can get access to that information really quickly. And this is where that performance analyzer is checked. Back to the interface. So in addition to that ribbon at the top, you got a series of buttons on the left-hand side. So there are three important views. First is going to be the report view. This is where we are right now. You have access to any other related panes. As soon as you get access to that report view, you have the canvas. So the canvas is actually where you would actually do your main work. So when you're creating visual objects or simple reports, you're working inside that main canvas area. You're not limited, so you can actually have multiple pages inside your report, similar to what you could do with Report Server. You have that same kind of functionality available to you. On the fields list, this is actually pointing to all the different tables and underlying fields that exist as part of this data set that you've actually connected to currently. So all these will display to you, and if you expand any of these characters, it'll show you the underlying fields inside there. Next, we have the visualizations. So these are the objects you can create on the screen. If you want a chart, you want a graph, you want a KPI, or you want a map, all these reside exactly in this location. Once you add the visualization to it and you add data to it, here's where you would actually add data to that. So for this particular example, we've got the map that's selected currently. So I've got location, I'm providing in the country, the state, province, and also the city. For the size of the circles on there, that's going to be the total excluding tax for this particular example. You can also switch this one to a column chart if you wanted and get that same functionality, but if you want to provide it across a map, this is an easy way to accomplish that. But in addition to that, you can actually customize the underlying layout. So inside here, looks like a paint roller. So now you can actually control what actually the user interface looks like for that particular control. So if you want to turn off the title, you want to change the fonts, you want to change the color of the background, all the bits of functionality is available for you inside here for formatting. There's also a filters pane. So if you've worked with Excel and utilized filters, same kind of concept in here, but now I can actually control where those filters are actually applying. So they can be a filter for a specific visual, can be for an entire page, or it can actually, if I have multiple pages, that filter will apply for the entire report. So here's some of the filters that are on this particular visual. So since we've got city, we've also got country, state, and also the total excluding tax. And just some very simple filters that are available for this particular report. Going back to the left-hand navigation, the next one is going to be your data view. So you access it, and it looks exactly like the table on the left. You can explore your data and see what data is actually loaded into your data model. So you can use the fields list, you can change the table as needed, you can filter, you can apply calculations. Got a lot of different functionalities available inside here. The core thing to understand is when you're filtering your data, it does not affect the underlying data in the back end. So you can do all this functionality directly inside here without affecting any of your current data. Next is going to be the model view. This really allows you to see relationships between your tables and columns. It also exposes a property pane, so you can add synonyms for the natural query language if you need to, if you want to add a description, or you can even change the storage mode available. When you're first working with your data, you might want to transform it. So you can do this inside of your Power Query editor. So it's going to be accessed directly in the Home tab on the ribbon, and it's going to open a separate window inside of Power BI Desktop. Inside here, there's actually a GUI interface, so you can either use the GUI to shape your data, or you can write M code to shape your data or even clean it if you want to. Something to keep in mind is you do need to apply those changes, and it's not going to affect your underlying data model. It's going to cause a refresh of your queries, whatever's been changed. A little more details of what's inside here. So if I want to get more data, I want to switch between the different types of tables that exist in my environment, I can view those very, very quickly. Some more into the Power Query editor. If I want to choose which columns actually reside in that underlying data set, remember I said you can filter what's available inside that data set, so people aren't looking at perhaps unuseful information or a GUID value or something like that, or even a salary that you don't want provided across to people that are analysts that are generating the reports. You can hide those columns. You can also split columns, or you can group. If you want to change the data type, so if you're reading from a CSV or something like that, you can change the data type from, if it's coming across as text, but you need to actually do calculations on it, you can change your data type. You can also replace values. So if you've got similar values for a similar company and you're doing a preview of the analytics and you see that you're getting duplicates where you should not be getting duplicates because somebody misspelled a company name, you can fix that in the replace values also. Finally, there's a lot of different options and settings inside of Power BI. So that's available from the File menu and go to Options and Settings. And with that, let's go ahead and go into the different demos. As I mentioned, there's a lot of different data sources that are available, and I want to cover a lot of more obscure ones that you might not come across on a day-to-day basis, but just give you an idea of the power of Power BI. First one I'm going to start with is just going to be a web data source. So this one's actually going to start with fool.com. There's just going to be some investing in growth stocks, and I want this particular table. So as you can see, it is a complete website. There's not just a CSV file I'm pointing to or anything like that. But let's say what it looks like when I pull this directly into Power BI. When you first start it up, you'll get this dialog screen. You don't have to have this every single time. There's a checkbox down here if you don't want to see this every time. But I just wanted to give you an example of what you're actually going to be previewing when you first open it up. I want to click on the Get Data link. So inside here, I'm going to search for web because I'm going to actually do a web request inside here. I can just choose web, copy over my URL, click connect. I'm going to provide the URL and see what it gives us. So inside here, I give me a handful of different options, but it actually picked up the correct one first. So you see I've got my Tesla, Shopify, Block, and Etsy. This is actually the one I want. So I can either choose whether I want to load this directly and start generating a report, or I can go directly and start transforming the data if I want to clean it up a little bit. Not worried about it right now, just going to go through a couple of examples, but I want to show you a more extreme example of Power BI to extract data. So this is actually from a wiki page. So I'm going to copy this URL. Inside here, I've got a handful of tables, as you can see, but I want this particular table. So I'm looking for the number 1, 1960 in France to appear, part of my report. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to click Get Data. So starting my Home tab, Get Data. I choose Web again. Inside here, I've got a lot more options because I picked up various tables, but let's see if we can figure out which one is actually looking for. This actually looks really close. So I've got my 1960, France, everything I wanted. If there's any others that pop up across here. So this is actually the more correct one because I wanted the 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's go ahead and take this one. Again, you have the option to load it or you can transform your data. As I mentioned, we'll go through some more obscure ones, but let's choose a Google Sheets. I'll show you what the underlying data looks like. It does require an authentication to work. So this is an invoice line spreadsheet, very basic. I've got an invoice ID, stock item, very, very basic functionality. So I'm going to take this URL directly from Google Sheets. Again, use this get data. This time I need to go to more. I'm going to search for Google. So it has a auto detect and pretty good search. So I want to choose Google Sheets to connect to this time. So it does use a third-party connector, and it will give you a notification about this. Hit continue. I need the URL. And it automatically detect my invoice lines. Give this a moment to process. Kind of a big spreadsheet. So now I've got my sample. So as you can see, same information. I've got my invoice ID, stock item ID. But you can see that these columns are not coming across correctly. So let's just go ahead and choose this transform data really quick, just as a option. I want to quickly show you what kind of data cleanse you can do without a lot of work. Let it get my data inside here. As I mentioned, we're seeing column 1, column 2. So these aren't the true headers that I want. It's invoice line, invoice 2. That's exactly what I want inside there. But there's actually a button here. So I want to use my first row as headers. So I can apply that. One of the things you can see inside here, finish cycling for a moment before I draw on here. Now my invoice ID, all of it is actually in my headers appropriately, and everything is set up exactly like I expected. But let's go into one other variation. Let's say I didn't want to see this particular column, or I wanted to filter. So I never wanted to see number 1, 2, 3, or 4 because those were test ones that I used. So I can automatically filter that. And what's happening over here, I've got these applied steps. So every single step that I'm doing to my data set, I can undo them. So if I decided this was the wrong one or it did something that I did not like, rather than an undo button, you can see all the different series of steps that you went through to reproduce this clean data set. So it's a much better way to process your information, make sure you're doing the right cleanup jobs. If I right click on this, quickly just go ahead and rename it. So let's say I actually wanted spaces inside here. The important part is I'm not affecting my underlying data. So if I pull up my Google spreadsheet again, see, does not have a space over here. So I've not touched my backend data at all. This is purely what Power BI is providing to me. Go into another more obscure example. My changes. How about Amazon? Choose an Amazon S3 bucket. If you've not heard of a bucket, is basically a storage device inside of Amazon. I've got a container called Power BI Demo, and I've got a CSV file called flightsandweather.csv. What I can do inside here, since this one is not publicly available, I can actually share it with a pre-signed URL. I can give myself 1 hour's access to it. Copy this. Go back over to my Power BI. Now we're going to go back to web. Just a moment to process the data. So now we get this same functionality. Now I can actually choose whether I'm going to load or transfer my data, but I was able to connect to an Amazon S3 bucket. So as I mentioned before, lots of different functionality, lots of different ways to get data into your system. Look at one more. This time I'm going to choose more. This time I'm going to choose a PDF file. So there's lots of times you're trying to extract data from a PDF. It's like, well, what do you do? Well, here's what you would actually utilize. So you can do this directly inside of Power BI. It's going to look at the tables that reside inside here, try and figure out which one you want. This is the values that I want. So I've got speed, I've got driver, car, engine. All this information is available for me really, really quickly. Let's take a look at some of the different ways that you can utilize something called DAX calculations. So I want to go above and beyond just getting data and working with data. So inside here, we're going to go through creating a calculated table, calculated column, and also creating measures. This is just a sample report that exists. I want to show you what's inside here, kind of behind the scenes. So starting with the model view, these are the underlying tables. So I've got reseller, product, sales, region, salesperson performance table, and also targets. You can see there are defined relationships in here. This one actually has a dashed line. So this one actually is disabled right now. So it's one of the pieces of functionality you do have is whether you want to have relationships active or inactive, even if they are defined. You don't necessarily have to utilize them in your reports. And I'll show you one of the reasons that we can do that kind of a functionality. The first thing I'm going to do is actually create a new table. So staying in our model view, go ahead and click on create a new table. So first I want to name my table. So it's going to be called just salesperson. And I'm going to put an equal sign. Hit Shift Enter. So now I want to take a value from another table. So I want to take the salesperson performance table. My checkbox. Now I've generated a salesperson table. It's going to match exactly what the salesperson performance is. As you can see, it does not have any links, any underlying data yet. But I want to take my employee key of sales, define that relationship. This one is active right now. So since that one's active, let's go ahead and delete the other relationship because we're not going to use that one anymore. As I was mentioned before, this is your opportunity to clean up your data. So I'm going to hide the employee ID because I don't want people reporting that value. The employee key, same thing. Also the UPN, I don't want that value reported on either. But I've got a lot more control over what can actually be reported rather than complete access to the underlying database. I can share this out and people can reuse it inside the organization so you don't have to recreate this every single time. As I mentioned before, if I choose the salesperson table, I can actually add a description to this. So this would be my sales, actually, this one down here is my salesperson related to regions. Sorry, I was on the wrong one at the time. Salesperson related to regions. This is actually related to the regions table. Now, our first one will actually be our salesperson related to directly to sales. Go back to our salesperson table and related to sales. And things like this, most data you'll see looks very similar. It doesn't seem like you can provide additional functionality, but let's push this concept a little bit farther. Inside here, let's create another new table. I'm going to actually use something called a date. Date is very, very specific to Power BI. I'm going to use this calendar auto, and I'm going to pass in a 6 parameter. What it does is actually will look through all the different data that I'm working with, and it will give me a data table that's very specific to the time frame this particular data set is appropriate to. I can look at the underlying data that was generated. So here we can see this is that new column starting in 2017, and it's in July. Everything came out exactly as expected, but let's add some more functionality to that. So on my date table, I've also got the date table and also the underlying fields over on the far left-hand side. Inside here, let's go ahead and click on New Column. So I'm going to take the underlying data that exists right now and just add some more functionality to it, or extract some more data. So now I've got a new column called Year. I'm going to hard code fiscal year. I'm going to take the year in front of there. And if it's greater than 6, I want to actually add in an additional 1. What that's going to give me is better years. So switch over to my data view. So you've got FY 2018. As you can see, this is actually past the 2017, but it's affecting fiscal year 2018. If I scroll down a little bit more, you see that going to 2020, I've got 2019. So all these are incrementing according to anything greater than 6. It'll automatically add 1 to that. But as I get past 6, I'm at 2019, getting closer to 7, and I move up to 2020. So very simple formulas. Like I said, if you have any experience with Excel, same kind of formulas fit in here. But this is very specific. It's called a DAX formula. I'm going to add one more. I'm going to add a new column. Let's break it into different quarters. So again, using that underlying date table that already figured out what our time frame is, let's take a look at what quarter values we got now. We've got fiscal year 2018. I've got quarter 1, quarter 2. So generate all those wonderful quarters for me automatically. Again, this is very specific to the dates available in this particular quarter. Add one more column. Let's get month out of this. So the format of it will be year, 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 and month, month. 2017, July. So you have complete control over how you want to display your values. But one thing that is happening now is my order's wrong. So I've got 2017 July, I've got August, so my order is a little bit off inside here. So I can use something called a month key to actually help me with that. Obviously, I don't want to report on it, but I want my report to appear in the correct order. Click on my date column. I've got a month key. So it's taking my date times 100, and it's going to add in the underlying date to that. This data turns out as. And I've got a 2017 07. Now it's by an 08. So now it'll help me keep this in order. I don't have to worry about it at all. And inside here, I can define what my sort key is going to be inside here. So I can say sort by column, use month key, so that there's no question that's going to be the key that is going to be sorted by every single time. Go into our report view. Not a lot going on here right now. Let's go ahead and add another page to this. Look at the underlying data. So we've got sales, and I want to put unit price. So I'm just going to check this, and it's going to automatically throw something out on the page really, really quickly. Got lots of different ways that I can view this data. I can view it in a matrix if I want to. So I can see unit price, $446. So very quickly be able to interact with these. Let's go in and add a new measure. So I'm going to create an average price for this. Just click new measure from my sales table. It's going to be the average of the sales unit price. Something to notice is there is a calculator next to these. So this actually shows that I have calculated these values. Go ahead and add this value inside here. And I've got my unit price and my average price. Zoom in a little bit so you can see it better. You can keep going with this. So if you've got more ways that you want to provide different measures, you can keep going with this. So I'm going to add in a couple more. Let's add in a median value. Put a minimum price. Now let's add these in here. So they're very, very easy to pick up because they have these calculators next to them. So I can just go ahead and click these checkboxes and it'll automatically add that to my page. I want to provide more information around the actual underlying orders. I've got a new orders value. It's going to be this distinct count of sales orders. Or if I just want to count all the different sales that are available inside here. So one more, the order lines, and it's going to be count the number of sales that were available inside here. Add in our order lines. Very easily add more value to this underlying data, create a lot more calculations to get to underlying values. So you don't have to actually create this in your database if nobody provided it to in your underlying data. You can very quickly add this to your underlying data set without affecting behind the scenes. Let's take a look at our target table. Inside here, I've just got target and target month. Add another measure inside here. It already exists. Don't know why. Add mine. Want a new measure? Will be called target. Will be our target amount. Not sure why my target table is not displaying. One of the live demo. Add one. Other one. Let's take a look at the variance. So I have access to targets. Second one's not working. On a big data. Good part is I can actually undo this. Actually, a very good undo. Clean up the values inside here. My sum of target was creating the issues. Back to a clean data set. Give you an idea of different types of reports you can get out of Power BI. So if you're used to Excel, just understand this is pushing that technology to a completely different level. This is a true business intelligence application. So inside here, I've got a lot of features and functionality. So if I want to click on this July 2019 and automatically filter, you can see everything on this page has been affected by this click. So I can also choose which regions I want to see specifically and automatically filter everything on the screen. I can choose a different fiscal year and also go back to select all, going to affect everything inside my underlying data. If you want to have the ability to drill down, you can include that functionality also. And you've got that same visualization. You can also filter by different region if you want to. If you want to switch the layout from a bar chart to a column chart. I got another look at different types of data. So it's a completely different report. Start with our supplier quality. So inside here, you've got some Hardy balls that tell you what the status is for these different defects. Also got different reports that are available. You can also see the defect by material. So if you want to filter by just cartons, you can see it instantly is going to reflect on everything on the page. Also got my top bottom analysis. So I can drill down into these different categories and instantly find out if there's a particular category that's affecting different raw materials. I can also store my downtime analysis inside here. If I want to filter by XX way, I can choose that very quickly, or even raw materials. Flip will automatically reflect everything on the page. This one's a little more obscure. This was actually utilizing called a template. So there's two different types of file types inside of Power BI. There's a Power PBIX and a PBIT. The PBIT does not include the underlying data. Apparently, Teams kicked me out. I sincerely apologize. Hopefully, you can see my screen again. So I opened up another report. This is actually a code case report. This is pointing to pretty much live data extracting directly from GitHub. The unique piece of functionality with this is actually using a different type of file. So normally when you're working with reports, something called a PBIX, that's going to have your report and also your underlying data set. You can use this PBIT if you want to share the file without having to have the underlying data as part of it. So this one actually does a live lookup. You can, same kind of functionality if I want to filter on California or Texas or Florida. You see it'll light up navigation. There's also a county view. This is only set up for Illinois currently. Got switch between DuPage and Will County. Lots of simple and useful information, but a nice way to carry data around. What's really nice about this, if you do sign up for the app.Power BI, I can quickly push this publish button. So now I'm going to save this out. As I mentioned before, I pulled this in as a PBIT file because there's no data with it, but I want to save it now as a Power BI file. So I'm just going to call this sample. Let's go ahead and publish this. I've already signed in, so my name is signed in. So I'm going to choose My Workspace. That's one of the limitations of the free version. You are limited to the My Workspace. If you do want to share this or collaborate with other people, you do need an additional license. And everybody that's going to be interacting with you would also need that same license. So I showed you before, my workspace was completely cleaned. This is a new example that I've just uploaded. Now I've got a report available to me inside file. Should look exactly the same. So I've got the same looking report. I've got the same interactivity. If you've ever used Report Server, you can see if it has this ability to subscribe to the report if you want to. I can share this out. Again, this goes back to if you have either a pro license or you have a premium license, this is when you can share that out. So it's one of the limitations with the Power BI free version is you don't have the share capability. Now I can take this underlying example.pdx file that I was working with, so just all these PBIX files, I can email this, I can upload it to OneDrive or SharePoint and share that with another person. So it's not a true limitation. Other people can get access to these data, to my reports. I can generate a PDF, I can generate a PowerPoint, I can generate an Excel spreadsheet. All that is available to me. It's just the functionality is just a little more limited with utilizing the free version. And I want to check our chat, and I don't think it's working yet. So if anybody has any questions or comments, got a few more slides. So just kind of give you an underlying idea of what this Power BI free license means and all the different features that are available and underlying data sources. So with the free one, you've got 70 different types of connections for you. It's going to be on-prem or on cloud. Can use that PBIX file sharing, as was mentioned before. You've got a lot of visualizations that are available to you out of the box. As I showed you before, it auto-detects your relationships, so it builds these relationships for you automatically, and you don't have to use those. You can customize them as you need. You can also export this out as needed to PDF, PowerPoint, CSV, Excel as needed. If you do have a existing need for Python or even R, that is actually also supported. So if you want to use an underlying connection to Python or an R connection, quickly and easy, add that. As a demonstrator, you can actually publish directly to the My Workspace. So core difference between the free version and the paid version. Once you get into the paid version, that's when you can actually share that with other people, and it goes above and beyond just the My Workspace. Moving up to the Pro, now that's where you got the ability to share different folders. You can also do more computation inside the cloud, and now you have access to those workspaces that I mentioned before. Inside the cloud, you can also set up different types of automated data refreshes. So if you want to do it every hour or every minute or however you want to define that, it's where you would define that. There's a lot more other features in there, and when you move to the premium, it even has a lot more advanced features. As I mentioned, you do want to download Power BI Desktop. Two different ways to do it, either Microsoft Store or just download directly. The link's at the bottom of this page. And I'll leave this up for just a few moments if anybody has any questions before we close out in the last 4 minutes. You should be getting a link directly from One Venue to provide you access to this, and it's going to be available on our website. Hopefully that answers your question, Kathleen. If you do have any other questions, but I do want to thank you for attending. I know it's hard to take away from lunchtime for a webinar, but I really want to thank you for your time and patience. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach out to our sales or even to Kevin Martin for additional information, or our phone numbers are also at the bottom. But at Optionality, we're a one-stop shop. We do training. We also do ESP, and we're also an MSP for Microsoft, but we also provide training for CompTIA and also ISC cybersecurity. Mr. Dale Stevenson, is there a Power BI textbook? There actually is a lot of different Power BI textbooks. Has a second. So this is the Microsoft Pro Store. As you can see, the price is free. It's not currently for sale, but there is a download for it usually, so you can just download it. But I'll give you a link to this. Glad you appreciate the graphics and data, Mark. Andrea, you're very, very welcome for the information. Dale, I hope this is what you're looking for. Free is always the best way to get something. And we got about 1 minute left. And if there's any other questions before we end, still here.